When it comes to investing, diversifying your portfolio is one way to mitigate risk. To diversify and manage your bond investments, you can construct a bond ladder. This is Jim. Jim just retired and wants to invest $100,000 of his retirement savings in bonds. He does not expect to need to use the money for about 10 years and is a conservative investor, so he decides to invest 5 $20,000 amounts into highly rated 10-year municipal bonds from 5 different issuers. Jim plans to use the interest payments from his investments to replace some of his income lost at retirement. This is Jill. Jill just received a $100,000 settlement from a lawsuit over a new company's malfunctioning product. She decides that she'd like to invest $100,000 in bonds as well, but Jill decides to build a bond ladder. Jill is also a conservative investor and includes highly rated municipal bonds in her ladder. She will also use the interest to supplement her income. She splits her investment into 5 $20,000 amounts and invests equally in 5 different bonds that mature in 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 years. Each time one of the bonds matures, she reinvests the principal in another bond with a later maturity date. She continues investing in this way for 10 years as well. While Jim's investment decision certainly has the potential to provide some diversification and a steady stream of income, Jill's bond ladder offers some unique advantages. Building a bond ladder allows for increased liquidity. Because Jill's $100,000 is not tied up for a full 10 years like Jim's, each year one of her bonds will mature, barring any default from the issuer, and she has the option to access the principal without having to worry about selling her bonds in a potentially unfavorable economic environment. However, if she does not need the principal amount, she can simply continue to reinvest it. Having this option can be beneficial in the event that unforeseen expenses arise. Although Jim does achieve some diversification by splitting his investment among 5 different issuers, Jill has the potential to further diversify by investing in bonds of a different issuer each time one of her bonds matures. She can still choose to reinvest in bonds from the same issuers if she feels that they best suit her needs, but the bond ladder strategy allows her to re-examine the issuer's financial performance at regular intervals and change course if needed. Finally, the bond ladder strategy can mitigate interest rate risk. If Jim and Jill both make their initial investments at the same time in a low interest rate environment, let's see what will happen if interest rates begin to rise. If in 2 years Jim decides that he wants to sell his bonds in order to take advantage of the higher interest payments afforded by the newer, higher interest rates, he will likely have to sell them at a discount or price below par, potentially resulting in a loss of principal. Conversely, if he decides not to sell, he will miss out on the increased interest payments for the entire term of his bonds. Jill, on the other hand, is able to take advantage of rising interest rates as one of her bonds matures every year. At maturity, she is able to access and reinvest the full principal amount without having to sell the bonds at a loss. One caveat to this is if interest rates go down after Jim and Jill make their initial investments. In this case, Jill may be in a worse position than Jim since the new bonds she purchases likely carry lower interest rates. However, remember that with bond ladders, Jill is seeking to diversify her risk. Rather than effectively bidding on interest rates going down and purchasing all long-term bonds at once like Jim, Jill is spreading out her risk among a range of maturities, accepting the fact that knowing where interest rates will be years down the road is extremely difficult to predict. You do not necessarily need to have $100,000 to invest like Jim and Jill to construct a bond ladder. Bonds can be found with varying terms as short as 1 month up to 10 or more years. But keep in mind, the minimum par value for corporate bonds is typically $1,000, while the minimum for municipal bonds is almost always $5,000. You should also be aware of how your investment returns may be affected by commissions related to more frequent transactions. Open an account with Zions Direct today and start creating your own bond ladder through the Zions Direct Bond Store. You can also participate in Zions Direct auctions where you can help set the interest rate on the bonds you purchase. To continue building your investment knowledge, subscribe to the Zions Direct YouTube channel.